everyone, Uncle Jesse here. This is the Bambu Lab P1P, and yes, it looks like a slightly naked version of the X1 Carbon, but we're not going to be reviewing this 3D printer in today's video. What we are going to be doing is looking at how we can accessorize this machine by 3D printing some panels for this. And specifically, we're going to be taking a look at Neil 3D Print's latest files that allows you to turn your P1P into a companion cube from the video game portal. So if you're wanting to do this for yourself, the first thing that you're going to want to do is head on over to Printables, and Neil 3D Prints has the files all laid out there that you can download and run off and print. They do require some supports on them, brims on some of them, and I went off and printed all of these in PLA in gray, pink, and white filament that I had laying around, and I ended up printing them on my two X1 Carbons, my P1P, and I even broke out the AnchorMake M5 to print a handful of the pieces. And after a bunch of days of printing, I ended up with a huge box filled with 3D prints. So let me get these out and see if we can get these somewhat organized. So there are a ton of files that you need to run off in 3D print. Well, it's not a ton, but it is a good number of files that you have to run off and print. And the longest running prints, I think, were about 6 to 7 hours, and they were these large gray pieces here that require no supports, and the bridging between these parts is just incredible, but it helps keep everything stable as they're vertically printing here. And now that I've got everything printed and here on the table, it's time for me to actually get the parts cleaned up so that we can start getting them added onto the printer, which means I need to start stripping them down with my deburring tool, as well as just peeling off any brims or anything like that. And set aside a good amount of time for the cleanup because it takes a little while. So what's kind of cool is these side panels here, the gray parts are just click together. They more or less snap together to make one larger piece. So I ended up reprinting a handful of the parts because I could not get the supports out of some of those prints. I just really need to look at readjusting some of those standard support settings, but I went off and re-sliced them using the beta slicer that now has slim tree supports, and these printed so well and are hopefully a lot easier to remove. Oh yeah, oh, that's coming off a lot easier. Oh my gosh, yeah, this is way better, way better. Holy cow, I wish I did this for all of the prints there. All right, now let's try and get these panels installed on the printer. All the gray panels are gonna be screwed directly into the printer with the supplied screws that came with the machine, and in fact, there are extra sets of screws directly on the back of the P1P that you can remove for this purpose. Once you have all the gray side panels installed, you can start gluing on the pink strips, and each one is individually slotted to fit in its own specific spot. And now we can start sliding on some of these white side printed parts here. And what's really cool about them is they're gonna slot into place onto most of these. A few of them we will have to super glue on. By the way, don't use lightning infill for these prints. I'm gonna have to reprint one of these parts here. It just completely snapped in half while trying to slide it on. This next part is probably gonna be the trickiest out of the entire build, which is taking the screen, slotting it through the printed part, and trying to get this maneuvered into place. It would also help if I properly followed the instructions here in which order to assemble everything, and I completely neglected that I should be doing that here. This is so satisfying to put together. And one of the coolest parts about this companion cube project is that I needed to reprint a few parts, so I went and did that directly here on the P1P while it was being assembled. And the last thing that we need to do is glue on these side panels that have the pink hearts on them. And just like that, our companion cube is completed on our P1P. This might be the absolute coolest thing that I have ever printed and assembled. And I've said that a lot before, but honestly, this thing blows my mind seeing it in person. This did take a lot of printing. It used, I think, 2 rolls of white PLA, 1 roll of gray PLA, and just a small amount of the pink that I ended up using there. I also needed some super glue. You're gonna need to make sure that you have some pliers or something to remove the supports. I would also highly, highly, highly recommend using the new slim tree support option that's in the Bambu Lab Slicer Beta. It'll hopefully be live here soon, but I downloaded that for the last handful of parts that I reprinted, and it turned out so much easier for me to remove those supports compared to the other parts. Also, some of the parts printed better than some of the others. I also use different brands of filament, and I will say Bambu Lab's PLA, their white PLA that I used for a handful of the parts here, printed beautifully, absolutely beautifully with their default profiles and settings there. I was honestly kind of blown away at how much better those parts look than some of the others that I printed. There's also no top to this as well, so you have free access to getting in and out of here, and there's no door or anything like that as part of the build here. I'm not sure if you had one installed that it would really work with this. Anyways, I also should have probably installed the extra fan mod as well as the LED lights. I did install the camera before going in about all of this side panel assembly here, but I should have probably in hindsight installed the other things. I think it's still gonna be pretty easy, but if I wanted to actually remove this, I would just need to remove all these side panels and then basically unscrew all of the gray portions. Fingers crossed, it would more than likely come out in a handful of pieces and would be a lot easier to reassemble and take off, etc. But I'm probably gonna keep it as is for a little while here, unless some other crazy design comes out that I wanna try that out as well. If you are interested in printing one of these cases for yourself, for your Bambu Lab P1P, I'll have links down below to Neil 3D Prints files over on printables.com. Again, this was such a wild project to run off and print with. Again, not a review or anything like that of the P1P just yet. I'll be doing that here probably sometime in January, and I definitely need a good bit more time with this, but so far the prints coming off of this machine are fantastic, especially if you're just planning on mostly printing with PLA or something like PETG. This might be a fantastic, very quick printer that you can pick up that's gonna be a lot more affordable than the X1 Carbon is. I also want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters for your continued support of me making dumb videos like this one here. If you're interested in more information about my Patreon and things like my 3D printer settings, you can find information to that links down below. And I wanted to say, let me know what you guys thought about this crazy build, and if there is a side panel project that you have in mind that you'd like to see available for a P1P. I'm interested in trying my hand at designing one myself. I have horrible, like next to no CAD design skills, so we'll see if I can actually pull something off here. But hey, thanks so much for watching, you all, and I'll see you next time.